Thank you very much for joining me for a review of my BattleTech Fire Lance from the Davion Heavy Guards by Ral Partha Miniatures. So it's Friday and I was thinking of a video to shoot and I decided to do something a little bit different. So complete genre change. This is nothing to do with anything grimdark, but I'm going to talk to you about my favourite micro scale futuristic armed combat game, and that is BattleTech. Some of you may be familiar with BattleTech. I mean, BattleTech's been around longer than Warhammer 40,000, slightly longer, maybe about the same time. It was originally called a game called Battle Droids, and it was written and published by a company called FASA, and the models were produced by a company called Ral Partha. And it's been going, you know, they've had a few bumps along the road, but it's still going today under the renamed label of Classic BattleTech. But I just thought I'd show you. I've got quite a lot of BattleTech models, and I've got some quite sizable painted forces. So I thought I'd just share some of those with you. And here we have what's called a fire lance. So what's a lance first, and what's a BattleMech? Well, a BattleMech is a large humanoid bipedal war machine. There are quadrupeds, but these are all bipedal. They're up to 12 meters tall. These guys here are probably around maybe between the sort of 9 and 10 meter mark. This is what's called a fire lance. So this is like medium to light mech. So it's quite fast moving, quite hard hitting, very mobile. The Davion Heavy Guards is a heavy fighting unit in one of the factions in the game. So let me show you what these are. So there's 4 battle mechs which make up a lance. 3 lancers make up a company. 3 companies make up a battalion. So 36 mechs will be a battalion. So this is but a lance is generally seen as being the smallest effective tactical BattleTech unit. So we've got 4 mechs here, and let's name these from left to right. So this is a Valkyrie, this is a Centurion, this is a Bushwhacker, and this is a Wolverine. So there's some interesting models in this. I'll show you the paint schemes, give you a brief overview of how I painted them, and talk a little bit about some of the models as well. So let's start with the Lance Commander's mech, which is this guy here, and this is a Bushwhacker, if you can say it right, a Bushwhacker. So the Bushwhacker is a 55-ton mech. Mechs range from 20 to 100 tons in weight, so this is kind of like a middleweight mech, and it is indeed in the medium category. And it's armed with a variety of weapons. These are all metal models by Ral Partha Miniatures. They're now produced by Ironwind Metals. They're all mounted on these metal Ral Partha bases. And the whole model is metal alloy. And I think most of these guys are actually lead alloy as opposed to white metal alloy. So there we have a paint scheme. So when I painted these, I wanted to do an operational camo scheme. The Davion Heavy Guards, as many units do in BattleTech, have parade schemes, and theirs is a rather garish mix of red, white and blue. Well, I say garish, but it certainly stands out. But I wanted to paint something that looked like they were actually on operation. And to do this, I've used a mixture of hand techniques and also airbrushing. So the way I painted these was I painted them with this mid-green tone all over. I then applied a diluted wash of the Tamiya Smoke paint. And Tamiya Smoke has got some useful physical characteristics for shading. It's a slightly viscous paint, and it has a tendency to draw into recesses and cracks. So as a result, it's a rather neat way of introducing shade to a model. I did that. I then, using my airbrush, airbrushed up some of the green areas to give that a flatter finish again. And then I used, what green did I use for that? I can't even remember what green I used for this. I think there's some Citadel Goblin green in it, and probably a few others. I then mixed another colour which was based around the Tamiya buff, into this sort of alternating tone camouflage colour, which I then sprayed onto patches to break up the mech's silhouette and profile. I then applied a second layer to the highlight camo patches, and that was introducing some very small amount of white into the buff mix and reducing the nozzle size to spray a smaller area. I then used Tamiya gunmetal to pick out the exposed weaponry, applied an ink wash, and then did painted highlights by hand on that. As I say, this is an operational paint scheme, so I've kept the metallics intentionally dull and not over highlighting them, because you don't want, with camouflage, you don't want to get spotted by reflective surfaces. I then picked out some radiators and other details in black, so for example there. I then mixed a dark line wash and picked out some of the detail again, so you can see around the cockpit cover of the mech, I've picked out some of the detail there between the armor plates, and that's just where that had got slightly lost in the airbrushing. Missile pods were picked out in red, and being careful to keep a black outer around the missile pod to create the impression of depth, so you're just seeing like the tip of a missile. Obviously that's not quite so camo specific, but that's a bit more of a visual cue to make it look nice. And I then painted the cockpit with a dark blue and then incrementally highlighted that up, and then used the very highest colours of highlights to pick out the edges of the windows. And then on this particular one, I added these shark's teeth detail in the style of sort of a Second World War fighter plane. So if you've known in military history, something you could imagine a bit like a P-40 Warhawk. But I added that just because I like this sort of bulbous front end of this bushwhacker mech, and I thought, so I added that to kind of accentuate the profile of that. So that's the Lance Commander's mech, the bushwhacker. The second mech in the Lance is this, and this is the Wolverine. This is a 55-ton mech, so it's the same weight as a Commander's mech, whereas a Commander's mech is more suited to range combat. This is fast moving and suited to closer range assaults. Here, now, there's a lot of BattleTech mechs that are designed to have aerials, but of course when you buy them, they're metal models, and these are 1 to 285th scale model miniatures, so you can't cast an aerial on it. So using some fine wire, add those aerials. And there's two bits here. Well, this isn't actually just an aerial, this is a small gun turret, and then there are two aerials mounted on the head. And same approach with this mech as the other one. I picked out more black detailing on this. There was no set amount of black detailing I did. It all depended on the model and what looked like might be heatsink or a radiator fan. I did quite a lot more black lining on this because this mech has a lot of surface detail, and this model is actually quite a rare one now. There was a famous lawsuit between the owners of BattleTech, FASA, and a toy company called Harmony Gold over the image rights to this, and this is actually for the anime fans amongst you. I believe this is sourced from it was an anime cartoon. I don't think it was Gundam, but I can't remember. Quite a lot of the designs were taken from a Macross cartoon. But yes, ultimately they lost control of the rights of this in North America, so they just gave up using the imagery and stopped making the miniatures. So these are quite hard to find these days, mechs of this era, and they're colloquially known as the Unseen. Then the base, so again the metal Ral Partha base, finished with some sand, a little bit of rock detailing. This has been painted with Tamiya. This is, I think, XF60, which is desert yellow, and then highlighted up, and then the edge painted in that as well. Very nice model. One of the great things about these BattleTech mechs is they've got a lovely weight to them because you've got a metal model on a metal base, and this one as well, this is a lead alloy miniature, so it really is has a lovely weighty feel to it. Okay, let's move to the third mech in this lance, and this is a Centurion. And this is a 50-ton machine, which is fast moving with range support. So this guy's like a flanking mech. A very different style of design. I mean, you'll notice from these models there is a very eclectic mix of designs with these guys. There's all sorts of different sculptors and artists who are involved in the BattleTech project, there's a very eclectic mix of mechs in terms of their looks. Most of there's a variety of models. I mean, some of these are single piece, some of these are multi-part. This is a single piece, this one. And again, I added an aerial detail to the rear of the mech's head. So that's the Centurion. And then the final mech of the lance is the Valkyrie. Now, when I was talking about the origins of the imagery, the imagery of this mech was taken straight out of the original Macross cartoon. I can't remember the name. Is it Interdimensional Fortress Macross or something? Yes, and so this is a 30-ton light mech. It's quite fast moving. It's no faster moving than its lance mate, so, but it's equipped with a missile rack for indirect fire mainly. So this is what you might call a scout or a harasser. Again, it's got aerial details on the mech's head. One of the features of this mech is it's jump capable, so it has lifting jets that allow it to traverse terrain more quickly, and those are modelled on. With this one, I've picked out quite a lot of the details in the black, which gives it this sort of quite contrasted appearance paint scheme. All these models, these have all been varnished. I actually used a water-based varnish to complete these guys, if I remember right, which I just like an artist's acrylic water-based matte varnish, which is a bit different. And one of the reasons I used it was to avoid using anything that was solvent heavy, because when you're airbrushing, and particularly using Tamiya paints, which is solvent based, and others as well, but in general with airbrushing you get fine coats. Sometimes you need to be wary of what varnish you use, and just avoid using anything that's too harsh. I mean, there's lots of really good matte varnishes out there, but the last thing you want to do is spoil hours and hours of careful painting with applying a varnish that then smooshes all your detail. There you go. I hope you found that an interesting little overview of something different. Yeah, a BattleTech fire lance from Davion Heavy Guards, and this surface here is a battle mat, and perhaps I might come back and do a review on that in future. Thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.